Okay, I'd like to introduce our first artist for the Camino Lago public art presentations, and the first artist we have today is Gary Slater from Tempe, Arizona.
I want to thank you for inviting me to be a finalist in this competition again. I really love the setting here. It's incredible settings, very well done, beautiful place. I've been over and visited the site a couple times, and in a few minutes when we get the tech stuff all up and running, you'll see these pieces in the circle out there. So you get a good idea of the location and the setting and the how it's going to look, if I'm chosen, how it's going to look in the final analysis. The most important person in this room is not me, it's Tex. And you can always tell he's a cowboy because he's got his hands in his back pockets, as opposed to politicians who always have their hands in your pockets. But anyway, this is Tex. He is 6 feet tall, actually a little bit over that because he's got his hat on. But if Tex was real and these were full scale, he is 6 feet tall. This is 12 feet tall. This is a little over 18 feet, 18 inches for the pedestal base. And the reason I did these full scale pretty much, I had a terrible time. I made the small wooden models and they just didn't have the character. You'd have to do a lot of imagining to imagine this. The colors, the cutouts, the wrinkled copper. This is copper in here. You'd have to do a lot of real imagining to see it from a small wooden model. So I made these small scale first, and then I thought, you know what, I'm just going to jump off the deep end and do them at a scale where you can really see what the metal looks like, what the colors might look like, what the copper is going to look like, and what the glass might look like. And the reason I have two of them is because, again, I thought I was just torn. I didn't know if you wanted something really tall or something with a little more bling, a little glass. And so I thought, I'll just present them both, and I'll kind of leave it up to you. If I'm chosen, you could choose one or the other, so that I've covered my bases in terms of size and maybe a little bit of sparkle. I'm a traditional sculptor. I like form more than blinking lights. And I've done the city of Scottsdale and Tempe and Chandler. Sometimes they have me do installations for other artists, young kids who don't know what they're doing, basically. They hire me to install their sculptures because I've got insurance and all that stuff. And they bring over stuff with LED lights and solar panels and things that they're very up to date and cool and everything, but I'm not quite there. I'm still kind of old school. This is pure form. My tradition, all the sculptures here comes up on the screen now. Traditionally, I do form sculpture. I don't do a lot of glitzy stuff. This is probably one of the most glitzy pieces I've ever done. So, don't want to say new age, but this is a little more forward than I usually do. So, we have these two possibilities. So I don't know, what you're looking for. It's, my thought was you've got a tall one out here already. I have 1,000 ideas. I went through probably 1,000 ideas before I got here. Went through all my old, my history of all my work. I've done a lot of tall pieces. I've done a lot of painted pieces. I've done a lot of stainless pieces. You've seen those in the preliminary judging. So I've done all that stuff before, but when I filtered it all down, I thought that one of these would be the best for me for this site, and maybe for you for this site. So had a lot of history to go through to arrive at this. Of course, this one, if it's 18 feet tall, will not turn. Will not turn. That is simply what I did for you to look at it here. Either one of these pieces is pretty much indestructible. The only drawback, when I say indestructible, the only drawback is the glass. I mean, there's always the potential, if some idiot wanted to, could damage the glass. So there's, as much as I love the glass, there is a slight downside to that. On the other hand, I'm not aware of any major art pieces ever having been destroyed because of the material or anything else. So depending upon how it's actually placed in the circle, and depending upon, you know, how much you want people to access the piece, maybe that's not the best piece. I don't know. It's a matter of you know what you want to have the public do in terms of being close to the piece. I mean, this piece you could climb on it all day long and you can't hurt it. Be Corten steel, and it'll rust just like this. This is the early stage of rust. Eventually it'll be dark brown when it's all done, like rust always is. The copper will be dark brown, very much like this. Might be a little green on it, but not much, if any. Copper doesn't normally turn green all by itself. It takes a lot of acid and nasty rainwater and junk like that. It takes interaction with air and water simultaneously. But most of the time when copper is left by itself, it just turns brown. You see all the copper rooftops around the valley. Most of them are brown. The ones that are green are made green with chemicals. And I can do that as well. I can make that green in 5 minutes if you want me to. So, you know, that's a possibility. This one, this is the early stage of copper. It's just pink. It'll turn brown. It'll be as brown as this. So there'll be a good contrast between these two. Oh, here's another. There we go. This is one of the other pieces I was considering. This was a new piece. I thought it might be appropriate for the circle out there. This is another piece I considered strongly. It would have been about 12 feet tall minimum. And again, user-friendly, interactive, indestructible, and all that. So I went through, you know, these. This is an earlier piece. This is, you know, several years old. I've always been aching to make this piece very tall, and very big, and very public, but I have never gotten to that point where it's been able to show it for that. I did make these especially for that site. These are brand new. I decided not to go back and try to reconstruct these earlier pieces. I decided to make something brand new for that site. I've done this piece called Link about, I think I've done it 10 times, small scale, out of bronze, and I've sold them. So it does have, you know, that history to it, but I've never made it any bigger than the small model size. But going back to these, anyway, it's they're heavy plate steel. They're not going to be lightweight. They're not going to be flimsy. Very heavy, and you know, you could hit them with a sledgehammer. They're not going to even dent. So it's heavy steel. I don't know. Earlier pieces, another link up there.
Bring up the estimates to show it in reference to the size.
Yeah, that's similar to the small link piece. This is link number 2, which that's my son standing next to it, And it was actually, well, he sure looks short and fat there. It actually is 12 feet tall. It's on a pedestal when it was finally installed. So it's a pleasure talking to you.
Nice talking to you.
Thanks.